My name is Zachary Whitaker. I'm 55, and I used to be a man people feared, at least when I worked for the Bureau. These days, I'm just the old guy living alone in a crumbling house outside Savannah, Georgia. The kind with shutters that groan when it rains and a porch swing that hasn't moved since my wife died. My brothers built empires from lies. My son built distance from silence. I didn't fight them. I should have. I've always been the one who kept peace. Who stayed quiet. The family's cleanup man. Invisible when it counted most. I thought stepping away from that world meant safety. I was wrong. Because this Christmas, my son sent me a message that shattered everything. No need to come, Dad. And within 48 hours, my entire identity, my name, my money, my sanity, began to vanish, piece by piece. They thought I'd disappear quietly. They forgot who I used to be. The screen flickered twice before it lit up. 1:04 a.m. New message from Lucas. I sat up, heart thumping. No punctuation, no warmth, no room for questions. No need to come this Christmas. Dad, we're good without you. I didn't blink, didn't breathe. Instead, I stood, barefoot, floor cold, walked to the kitchen like a ghost. I opened the safe under the sink, old habit. Grabbed the thumb drive, plugged it into my laptop. Accessed the vault. Transfer attempt. Denied. Access level. Suspended. Reason. Irregular authorization. I checked the fallback account, locked. Savings for Lucas's trust, frozen. Emergency medical, inactive. 3 red banners, all under my name, all locked under my ID. And the last login? 2 hours ago. IP address, Bethesda, Maryland. Device. Lucas's personal laptop. I'd taught him how to use double encryption when he was 13. Now he used it on me. The radiator hissed, a distant thud outside. Porch creaked. I clicked into the signature verification page. My stomach turned. There it was, my name, smooth, looped, the slight pressure I always added on the W in Whitaker. But I didn't sign it. And whoever did, knew exactly how I write under pressure. People don't fake what they can't access. Someone gave him this. I said it aloud, to myself, to the night. Elena would have known. If she were still here. I called the bank's emergency legal desk. Mr. Whitaker, a woman said, clipped tone, due to the flagged activity and cross-jurisdictional complaint, we are legally required to withhold access pending review. A family member filed a fiduciary concern. What family member? I'm not at liberty to say. You don't need liberty, you need a warrant, and I used to write them. Line went dead. I scrolled, checked metadata. Found the email that initiated the lockdown. Sent from zach.whitaker@protonmail.com. I didn't own that account. Attached was a notarized letter. I, Zachary Whitaker, consent to transfer all oversight of Whitaker Family Holdings to the EM Foundation. The signature? Mine. The notary? Judge Harlan Godfrey. My former neighbor, retired 10 years ago, had a stroke last spring. Godfrey couldn't lift a pen, let alone witness legal documents. The edges of the page shook in my hand, not from cold, from fury. By 2:40 a.m. I was outside, boots crunching gravel, fog crawled between the trees like smoke. My breath was visible, my thoughts weren't. Across the street, a dark sedan idled, no headlights, no engine hum, just there, watching. I turned back toward the porch. Lights off, quiet. Then the porch swing moved. Once. Like something, or someone, had just left it. Back inside, I pulled out the storage file I hadn't touched in 5 years. Elena's papers, the deed, old records, birth certificates, death notices. One page stood out, her original living trust. A handwritten line in the margin, if they come for him. He won't know why, he never knew the whole truth. She wrote that 3 weeks before her death. A knock at the door. Slow, deliberate. I didn't move. The knock came again, then a voice. Zach, it's Harlan. No cane, no cough, just a clear voice in the dark. You might want to come outside. I opened the door. He stood there, not shaking, not slouched. Judge? They're not after your money, son. His eyes narrowed. They're after your memory. He turned and walked toward the car. And inside my chest, something cold snapped loose. He forged my name, but I taught him how. Rain hit the windshield like nails. The wipers groaned, barely keeping up. Savannah's winter fog rolled in thick and mean, swallowing the headlights. I drove without GPS. Didn't need it. Green Fern Road hadn't changed since the 90s. Potholes in the same places. That rusted mailbox shaped like a duck still leaned the wrong way. I pulled up slow. No street lamps. Just dark trees, sagging fences. And there it was. The McClure estate. What was left of it? 2 stories of rot and silence. The house where Elena spent summers. Where she first taught me how to shoot. Where she first bled. After the fall. Or maybe the push. I stepped out. The smell hit me first. Damp wood. Mold. And old secrets. The front gate creaked like it remembered my name. Inside, every step echoed like a warning. Floorboards groaned. Wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips. No power. No heat. Then, in the corner of the foyer, a single candle. Lit. Still warm wax dripping. Someone had been here, recently. I drew my gun. Standard Sig Sauer. Worn grip. Old habit. Old ghost. Peace is what you pretend exists so you don't have to fight. That's what Elena used to say. Right before arguments. Right before truths. I scanned the living room. Broken furniture. A torn curtain swayed from a shattered window. But the photo shelf was intact. A dust-covered frame stared back at me. Elena, her father, and someone just out of frame, only their shoulder visible. Male, wearing a watch. That watch. I'd seen it once before. On Avery's wrist, 40 years ago. I turned toward the fireplace. Beneath the stone mantel, a discolored patch of floorboard. Unnatural. I pried it up. Beneath, a thin leather journal. Wrapped in twine. Still dry. Elena's handwriting. Sharp. No loops. No romance. December 4th. They think I'm asleep when they talk. I've heard things. Plans. Legal terms I don't understand. Lucas asked questions he shouldn't have. December 9th. Zach doesn't know. I'm not sure I want him to. He still believes in blood loyalty. He still thinks they'll protect him. December 12th. If something happens to me, look to Avery. He's not who he pretends to be. Then a page ripped, half a sentence cut in blood-colored ink. If Zachary ever sees this, he must know Avery. And it ends. No signature, no goodbye. Just silence. I stood there too long. The candle had gone out. The fog seeped in through the broken glass. My breath clouded. Then my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. Dad? Lucas's voice, shaky, rushed. I can't talk long. Where the hell are you? I didn't want it this way. They're watching everything. Who? Avery? I can't say. Then listen. No, you need to listen. Don't go back to the house. Don't trust anything with my name on it. Especially not the foundation. Lucas. Click. Gone. I stared at the screen. My own reflection looked back at me, warping across the cracks. He wasn't lying. He sounded terrified. I pocketed the phone and turned. And there, just outside the window, a man in a raincoat stood facing the house. No umbrella, no phone, just watching. I flicked the light from my gun under the window. Nothing. By the time I reached the porch, he was gone. No footprints in the mud. No tire tracks. Just silence and a fading scent of cheap cologne. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the library downtown. The one with security cameras. The one open late for research students. I sat under fluorescent light. Pulled out my burner laptop. Plugged in the bank drive. Started tracing. Transaction logs. Trust activity. Fund allocations. Then I saw it. EM Foundation. A shell corporation. Registered in Delaware. Operated under a law firm based in Nassau, Bahamas. But the mailing address? Right here in Savannah. Green Fern Road. They built the lie inside her childhood home. A vault for betrayal. I pulled the last document. A legal brief, hidden in metadata, sent to Avery's office. Subject: Strategy Phase 2. I scrolled. Establish mental incompetence. File guardianship request. Leverage notary video from March 18th. March 18th, the day I passed out in the kitchen. Thought it was low blood sugar. Thought it was stress. There was a camera? I closed the laptop, stood, my chest tight. They weren't just stealing my name. They were building a case. They wanted to erase me, with paperwork. And if they had that footage, they could win. They didn't need to kill me. Just convince the world I'd gone mad. If Avery's behind this, he's not just stealing money, he's burying her all over again. The building looked asleep. 5th floor, downtown, Avery's private office above a shell real estate company. All lights out except one, pulsing faint blue through frosted glass like a heartbeat. I didn't have a key. I had a crowbar. 4 seconds, one crack. Alarm? Silent. Deactivated 2 weeks ago, probably expecting a different thief. My shoes barely touched the carpet. Soft, soundless, expensive. The hallway smelled like varnish and secrets. Office door. Locked, reinforced, keypad entry, 4 digits. I typed the only number that still mattered, Alina's birthday. 0714. Beep, click. Avery always hid in plain sight. Inside, leather chairs, framed degrees, liquor cart, a photo of him with some senator, shaking hands like old friends. And a door I hadn't seen before. Half height, behind the bookshelf. I pushed, locked. I stepped back, brought the crowbar down hard. Twice, hinges gave, door swung open. Cold air spilled out. A small room, 10 feet deep, temperature controlled, metal racks, filing cabinets, hum thrumming from a floor vent. No dust. I clicked on my flashlight. Wall-to-wall folders, legal briefs, copies of my signature, bank records, wire transfers, mental health forms, all with my name. Some dated as recent as yesterday. A folder labeled, Air Strategy, Phase 3. Inside. Target enters early stage mental incompetence. Stage minor outburst, see March 18th footage. Activate witness affidavits from Dr. Greer plus J. Halverson. Greer, my old doctor. Halverson, Alina's cousin, a man who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years. They built a psychiatric case on paper before I ever lost control. Sometimes betrayal isn't what they do behind your back. It's what they plan while looking you in the eye. I looked around the room. Back wall, surveillance monitors, frozen footage, my face, in my own home, from angles I never authorized. Bathroom, bedroom, kitchen. Then something blinked. Top right monitor, the timestamp live, camera still on. The basement of my house. Someone was in it. I bolted out, ran down the stairs, heart slamming, breathing jagged. Out the emergency exit, into alley darkness. Rain hit hard, like the city wanted to drown something. I jumped into the truck, peeled out. Back home in under 7 minutes. The back door was open. Just a crack. Inside. Dark, quiet. I moved fast, cleared each room, gun up, no sound, no movement. Then I saw the trail. Wet footprints. Leading to the basement door. I followed. Stairs creaked under my weight, each step heavier, breath held. Basement. Untouched. Except for one thing. My mother's old steamer trunk, half open. Inside. A laptop, still warm. On the screen. An open file. Audio transcript. Lucas Whitaker to A. Whitaker. He doesn't know anything. He's not a threat. I froze. Lucas. The tone, flat, rehearsed. And then, another voice. Unfamiliar, low. You'll make sure he signs? Before the 28th? Lucas didn't answer. Cut to static. The file ended. I copied everything. Unplugged the laptop. Then the floorboards creaked behind me. I turned. Nothing. But I knew someone had just left. Back upstairs, I powered up my own drive, dumped the files, ran facial scan on the second voice. Search looped. Then froze. Match found. Dorian Whitaker. My uncle. Thought he was dead, thought he'd vanished after Panama. The man who buried entire companies in tax loopholes. And now his voice was on a file, asking my son for signatures. I gripped the table's edge until my knuckles went white. They weren't trying to bankrupt me. They were replacing me. Piece by piece. Paper by paper. Face by face. And Lucas, he was in the middle. Or worse, he was the bait. If I don't disappear by New Year's Eve, they will make sure I do. I didn't sleep. I watched the house breathe. Every creak, every tick in the walls. The refrigerator hum sounded louder than it should have, like something alive, listening back. By dawn, I knew one thing. Staying visible would get me erased. So I vanished. The motel was off I-95. Cash only. Flickering sign. Curtains that never quite closed. The kind of place where no one asked why your hands shook when you signed the registry. Room 214. I wiped every surface before sitting down. Burner phone. Burner laptop. Power strip taped under the desk. I called Ansel Reyes. 3 rings. You're late, he said. I'm hunted. A pause. Then you're finally paying attention. Ansel used to break systems for the government. Then the government broke him back. We were both ghosts now. Just different shades. I sent him the files. Bank logs, audio, surveillance screenshots, Dorian's voice print. He didn't react, just breathe. This isn't theft, he said finally. It's erasure. That's what Elena tried to warn me about. Yeah, Ansel said, and they finished the job. By noon, he had a map. Red arrows. Blue boxes, offshore loops. The EM Foundation wasn't a foundation. It was a laundering artery. Money moved from my accounts to shell LLCs. Then back into independent trusts, controlled by third parties. All legal. All devastating. Here's the part they didn't want you to see, Ansel said, tapping the screen. A storage unit. Rented under my name. Paid 6 months in advance. Archive vault. The lease said. I laughed. Once. Dry. They love theater, I said. Makes the lie feel permanent. Truth is quieter, Ansel replied. That's why it survives. We went at dusk. Storage facility on the edge of town. Motion lights. Cameras on swivels. No security guard. I killed the power to our row. Darkness swallowed the aisle. We cut the lock. Inside. Boxes. Labeled, cataloged. Hard drives, medical records, surveillance edits. Then the footage. Video of me shouting at Lucas. Spliced, cropped, context removed. In the raw version, I was warning him. In their cut, I was unhinged. Another file, psychiatric assessment, signed by Dr. Greer. Diagnosis. Early cognitive decline. That's fraud, I said. Ansel didn't look up. It's worse. It's premeditated. Then he froze. Zach, he said quietly, they've scheduled a hearing. He turned the screen. Emergency guardianship petition. Filed by Avery Whitaker. Hearing date, December 31st. 4 days away. If approved, I'd lose everything. Accounts, assets, autonomy. They don't need to kill you, Ansel said, just prove you're unreliable. A sound cut through the air. A click. Then a low whine. Move, Ansel said. Too late. The explosion hit like a fist. Heat, noise, the world folding inward. Shelves collapsed, glass shattered, a fireball bloomed behind us. I hit the ground hard, ears ringing, mouth full of copper. Ansel was down. I dragged him out, flames licked the doorway, smoke curled thick and black. Sirens in the distance. Someone had called it in. Someone always knew where we were. At the hospital, they asked questions. I gave none. Ansel went into surgery, shrapnel in his leg, lucky to keep it. Before they wheeled him away, he grabbed my sleeve. Upload everything, he said. If I don't wake up, burn them. I will. Zach, he added, you're not wrong for fighting. You're late. Night fell heavy. I drove back roads, changed cars twice, paid cash, left phones behind. At home, I found the door ajar. Again. This time, they didn't hide. On the kitchen counter sat an envelope. Inside, a copy of the guardianship filing. Highlighted. A note in the margin, written in a careful hand. We tried the quiet way. My reflection stared back at me in the microwave door. Older, sharper, meaner. I remembered something Elena once said, late at night, when truth pressed too close. When people stop pretending, that's when they become dangerous. I folded the papers. Lit a match. Watched the flame crawl. If I die, they win. If I survive, they burn. I let them think they were winning. That was the first move. I stopped answering calls, missed 2 medical appointments on purpose, let my voice shake during a recorded voicemail, left the lights on all night, left dishes in the sink, let the neighbors see me pacing the porch at odd hours. Performance matters, especially when the audience is cruel. Sometimes survival isn't strength. Elena once said, it's timing. By Christmas Eve, Avery took the bait. The invitation went out at noon. Handwritten, heavy paper, cream envelope. Family dinner, tonight, 7 sharp, house on Bay Street. No explanation, no apology. Silence is a weapon when used right. The house smelled like rosemary and citrus cleaner. Candles lit, table set for 6. I wore the old sweater. The one Elena hated, soft, familiar, non-threatening. At 6:58, the first car pulled in. Avery arrived smiling, perfect posture, polished shoes, politician's face, the kind that never admits fault. Behind him, Lucas. He looked thinner, eyes hollow, hands shaking like he'd forgotten where to put them. Dad, he said, barely meeting my eyes. Son. That word still hurt. Everyone else followed, cousins, in-laws, faces trained for civility, a room full of people who knew exactly how much I was worth, and how little they thought I mattered. Dinner started quietly. Too quietly. Forks scraped, wine poured, no one touched the turkey. Avery raised his glass. To family, he said, and forgiveness. I smiled. To truth, I replied, and timing. He paused, just a flicker. They always pause when the script breaks. I'd placed the recorder under the table before they arrived. Federal grade, encrypted, legal in Georgia, one-party consent. Mine. Conversation loosened after the second drink. Avery leaned back, comfortable now. Zach, he said, tone gentle, we've been worried. The hearing's coming up, you haven't responded. I forget things sometimes, I said, let my voice crack, hard to keep track. Lucas stiffened. Avery smiled wider. That's exactly why we're helping. Lucas slammed his glass down. No, he said, sharp, loud. The room froze. You said this was temporary. Lucas continued, you said it wouldn't go this far. Avery turned slowly. Careful, he said, you're tired. Lucas laughed, once, bitter. You told me she was dead, he said, you made me say it. Silence dropped hard. My heart pounded. What? I asked. Lucas looked at me then. Finally. She wasn't, he said, not that night. The air thinned. He swallowed. I found Mom unconscious, bleeding, barely breathing. I called Uncle Avery. He told me to hang up. Told me help would come. Avery stood. That's enough. Lucas didn't stop. They told me if I said anything, you'd lose everything. They said you'd be declared unstable. They said I'd be saving you. I stared at my son. You let me believe she died, I said. He nodded, tears finally breaking through. I was 20. I didn't know how to fight them. Avery moved toward him. Sit down. I stood first. No, I said quietly. The room held its breath. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket, set it on the table. Before anyone else lies, I said, you should know this dinner is recorded. Avery's face hardened. You're making a mistake. I already made that mistake. I said, years ago, when I trusted blood more than truth. I turned to Lucas. They used you, I said, and I let them. His shoulders collapsed. Avery reached for the drive. I slapped my hand down. Touch it, I said, and the FBI gets a copy before dessert. That stopped him. I leaned closer. You plan to erase me, I said, but you forgot something. Avery sneered. And what's that? I survived your first draft. A phone buzzed. Mine. A text from Ansel. Transfer scheduled. $28 million. New Year's Eve, midnight. A countdown. I looked around the table. At midnight on the 31st, I said, you plan to move everything offshore. Avery's silence confirmed it. Lucas whispered, you said this was just paperwork. Avery finally snapped. You were never meant to understand. He said, you were meant to obey. Lucas stood, backed away from him. I felt something crack open inside my chest. Old, deep. The truth doesn't need permission. I said, it just needs time. I turned off the recorder, slid it into my pocket. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Too far to matter, for now. I looked at my son. We're not done, I said, not even close. He nodded. Avery smiled again, thin, dangerous. You think this ends here? He asked. I met his eyes. It ends when the lie runs out of places to hide. Lucas's voice shook as he spoke again. You buried her while she was still breathing. New Year's Eve. The sky hung low, bruised with smoke. Rain hadn't come, but the air tasted electric, like something about to break. Downtown Savannah slept, unaware. I didn't. At 11:24 p.m., I stood outside the tower on Whitaker and Row. Avery's shell firm, 15th floor. No janitors tonight, no staff. Just two men waiting for midnight, one at the top, the other at the door. I used the freight elevator. No cameras in there, that's why they built it. No hesitation. Not anymore. Floor 15 opened into glass and silence. I stepped out slow. Gun holstered, thumb drive in my coat. Avery sat behind his desk. Whiskey in hand, suit still pressed, tie still perfect. You made it, he said. I always do. I was hoping you'd stay down, he replied, voice low, but I knew better. I walked past the model ship on his shelf, past the framed degrees, stopped at the painting of Elena, one he commissioned after her death. She hated being painted. Take that down, I said. She was mine too, Zach. She was never yours. He smiled faintly. The world doesn't care who deserves what. It just remembers who took it first. Behind me, the elevator dinged. Lucas stepped out. His hands trembled, but his eyes didn't. You said this wasn't real, he said to Avery. You said he'd forget. He was supposed to. Avery turned toward the big screen. Clicked a remote. On screen, a transaction countdown. 28 million, Cayman routing, midnight. Lucas whispered, you told me this was insurance. No, I said, he told you it was family. I threw the thumb drive across the desk. Avery caught it. You think this matters? It's streaming right now. He hesitated. Federal agent on the other line. I said, encrypted call. Every word you've said in this room, sent live. His jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. Then we both go down. You think I care? That's the difference, he said. I never needed to. Lucas took something from his coat. Not a gun. A folder. He opened it. Documents. Originals. Elena's updated will. Her signed request for private care. Medical reports scrubbed clean by Avery's people. You told me to destroy these. Lucas said. I didn't. Avery stared. No one will believe you. Lucas stepped forward. They believed the last tape. You were weak. Avery snapped. You always were. Lucas didn't flinch. Then let's see how a weak man ends you. The screen blinked red. Transfer failed. I smiled. I canceled the transfer at 11:58. Avery lunged. Gun drawn, raised fast. But not faster than Lucas. A single shot. Glass shattered behind him. Avery dropped, screaming. Bullet through the shoulder. Not fatal. I knelt beside him. You erased my wife. You tried to erase me. But you forgot one thing. Blood pooled. What? I stood. Some things refused to disappear. The police came 10 minutes later. The drive went to the agents first. So did the folder. No one argued. They cuffed Avery where he lay, still muttering about legacy. I looked back once. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what survives you. 3 weeks passed. Snow came late. Lucas stood beside me on the porch, staring at the trees. You think she knew? He asked. She always knew, I said. That's why she left us clues. He nodded. I'm sorry. You should be. Silence. Then. So what now? I looked out into the gray. We rebuild, I said. We tell the truth, even when no one listens. Especially then. He nodded again. Sometimes, I said, what breaks you is the same thing that sets you free. He didn't reply. But he stayed. Longer than I expected. Longer than he ever had. The wind picked up, the last leaf fell. And in the quiet that followed, for the first time in years, I wasn't alone.